ICORG was set up 20 years ago, and the idea was to organise clinical trials in Ireland. It was set up by oncologists, and what it has now become is a one-stop shop for clinical trials. So you can either be a pharmaceutical company who's interested in conducting a novel study in Ireland, but what's more important to me, and one of the reasons I want to work in ICORG, is we also provide an opportunity to do investigator-led studies, which really looks at those areas in cancer that maybe aren't of as much interest to the commercial world. And we really do try to bring these treatments to patients who wouldn't get them. But to do that, we need funding. So we get funding from the Health Research Board through the Department of Health, and we also get funding from our partners, the Irish Cancer Society, which is greatly received. But this allows us to do some of those studies so that our Irish patients have access to therapies and treatments they otherwise wouldn't. So there are many Irish people alive today because of the work of ICORG, even going back to that very first study 20 years ago.
We have a very dedicated and passionate clinical team, from the position of trainee CRA up to clinical project manager. They come with a variety of backgrounds and experiences, which is great for ICORG as an organisation.
The life as a CRA in ICORG is extremely varied. What I love about it most is that every day brings a new challenge. Every day is different. It's very different from my background as a radiation therapist in that I'm not working with patients anymore, but at the end of the day, it's always very much patient focused. What we do most in our job is really to do with ethical regulatory submissions. So I might work on an ethics submission. We go through in a patient information leaflet what the trial entails, a little bit of information, background information about the trial, and what side effects the patient can experience. And at the end of the day, also the consent process.
A clinical project manager in ICORG, it's extremely diverse. You are not pigeonholed in any way. You get your hands everywhere. It's amazing, actually. I mean, from a very basic level, you have a project, you manage it, you manage the team, you interact with your CRAs and everybody who's involved. Then in addition to that, I think what makes ICORG quite unique is that we are also involved with designing trials, trying to identify where we need trials. We're not bound by anything except for the patient needs. So we can identify where there's no trials, or maybe a specific area where trials are starting to slow up, or we're getting a very limited number of trials. So, as a project manager, we're then involved with discussions with the consultants. It's nearly at a global level. You have to keep an eye out all the time and see what can we get into Ireland all the time, just making sure that the patients in Ireland have the access to the best of the best out there.
I started with the Translational Research Coordinator in ICORG, and the translational portfolio increased dramatically in that time, and this is now about 6 years. So we were from around 3 translational trials now up to 29 translational trials. And as a clinical program leader, I'm overseeing and managing the whole portfolio. So I have a small team working with me, a fantastic team, I have to say. I'm really happy with them. I'm trying to move forward what can be done in the translational area. What type of trials can we do which actually help more and more individualization of cancer treatment?
Well, I think the thing about ICORG is that it gives us the opportunity to access new treatments for our patients, which is, for patients with cancer, the opportunity for the latest therapies, the most interesting, the most attractive, the most efficacious treatments before they would be otherwise available is a huge thing.
Well, when I first started in this area of medicine, I remember sitting in my first multidisciplinary team meeting, and I was really so impressed. You've got 15 to 20 consultants, top of their field, once a week in a room making a decision together about every single individual patient that comes through the system. And really, I think that if you take that out of the hospital and you use that focused, coordinated approach in the research setting, you get ICORG. Because ICORG is made up of all of these consultants, oncologists, hematologists, surgeons, research nurses. And it truly is an organisation that listens, because we are constantly, even research nurses and translational scientists, we're asked for our opinion, and our opinion matters and it counts. And really the coordinated approach to cancer research in Ireland is, I would say, top class, and obviously is a flag to fly for this country on the international stage.
From a patient point of view, they want to participate in clinical research. They want to see progress made for their sons and daughters so that they will not go through similar experiences. In addition to that, it allows us to access novel agents that we would not be able to access routinely through the Irish healthcare system, and that has dramatic benefits for our patients.
I think there's a lot of pieces of information that I would give a potential participant. The first one being to really listen to your oncologist and to hear why they think you are a good fit for the clinical trial. To not be too scared when they hear those words. I think people get quite frightened by them. And to realise that at a time where everyone is telling you what you must do, it's really nice to feel that you are participating, that you are helping future cancer patients, and that hopefully that it is going to increase your survival rate. And I think another part of it is that by being on a clinical trial, you're not only getting fantastic care from your oncology team, you're also getting the added care of having a clinical trials team.
Our work on a day-to-day basis has a massive impact, I think. You know, years and years ago, Ireland was a very isolated, small country, and therefore we were getting overlooked. Pharma companies who are developing drugs would not look at such a small population and decide to go there. It just wasn't feasible. So ICORG has completely changed that. We chase those clinical trials, or we chase the drugs, or we make trials in order to get these drugs. So basically, I think patients now have access to the best of the best treatment and the best drugs, and I think that's as a result of the clinical trials that ICORG do.
And I think ICORG's ability to fly the Irish flag, to get international pharmaceutical companies interested in pursuing patients in this country, means that it's comforting to know that if one of your family members ends up getting treated in this hospital, that they may have available to them the same as in any other cancer centre in the world, you know.
Everyone has a family member, or everyone knows somebody that's been touched by cancer. And we know in the last 10 years there's been so many leaps in treatment, in research, and that's all down to the good people, the people with the expertise, getting the funding, getting the opportunity to do this. So you can't underestimate the importance. I think sometimes we tend to be a little reactive, and it would be nice to see the government being proactive. I know myself from my experience, I was blown away by the experience, by how good the service was for breast cancer treatment in this country.
We want to do more studies. We don't want to do less. We want to have more treatments for more patients. And if our budget is cut, we're going to be forced only to do those studies which come with their own funding. And we won't be able to do the studies that probably aren't of interest to the pharmaceutical industry but are very important to patients.
Ireland continues to be a place where we can grow those novel new ideas in research through the work we do in ICORG. And we can only do that if we maintain the resources that we have. And that's really dependent on support from philanthropists, but mostly from the state.